Good evening, and welcome to the second annual Consul General of New York and the Jamaica Stock Exchange Virtual Diaspora Investor Conference. We are happy to have everyone back here together for yet another year. My name is Andre Gooden. I'm the Group Business Development Manager at the Jamaica Stock Exchange here in Kingston. And it is my pleasure once again have the opportunity to be one of the moderators in this very important session. Before we start, we always like to start our events with prayer, and we will do so. And I will ask Charlene Steer, Marketing Officer for the Jamaica Stock Exchange, or in her absence, Michael Johnson, to move a word of prayer to get us started this evening.
Charlene is there, Andre.
Okay, Charlene, go ahead, please. I'm not seeing you, but go ahead, please. Not hearing Charlene.
Pray, I've been asked.
Go ahead.
Good evening, all. Let us pray.
Wave your hand a second for me. Thank you.
May I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening, all. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Please forgive our trespasses. Help us to forgive those who have offended us or harmed us. Father, we invite your favor on this superb endeavor, spearheaded by the Consulate General of Jamaica, New York, and Jamaica Stock Exchange, and supported by wonderful partners. It is written, iron sharpeneth iron, diamond also sharpeneth diamond. Let this be our synergy. We are praying for impactful success. Success which, no matter our status, gives us meaningful, satisfied lives. Dear Father, we are grateful to be free to meet when others are beset by fears, pain, hoping to see another day. Though war confronts us, we shall not fear, for thy word says, we are inscribed on the palm of thy hands. The story of the 10 plagues of Egypt that set your people free was declared the work of the finger of God. How much more powerful are the palm of thy hands? So take full control now as we vote the law of seed, time, and harvest to command sound investments to flow like multiple rivers into Jamaica through the Consulate and through Jcsd, to recover, build, and create intra and intergenerational wealth within the diaspora and backyard. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Charlene. Thank you very much for that moving prayer. Consul General to New York, Ms. Asean Wilson, Ambassador Brian Wallace, Jamaica's permanent representative to the United Nations, Senator the Honorable Orbin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, other distinguished presenters on the program this evening, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen online, welcome. Again, I remember this concept coming to life last year, where the idea came forward in the midst of the pandemic that we needed to keep the energy as it relates to stimulating investments for the diaspora and keeping us close to our family and friends overseas. and the idea for this conference came about. It was a rousing success, and within 2 or 3 days of the event ending, Consul General Asean was back on us, and we agreed that this had to happen again. So here we are, and we have several excellent presenters with us today, including Brett Silvers, including Ferris Jackson, Tamika Ricketts, David Steinfield, and of course, Dylan Coke, and others as we go into the second day tomorrow. We don't have a lot of time, so we're going to really move as quickly as possible. And our first presenter actually will be Ambassador Brian, who is the Jamaica Permanent Representative to the United Nations. Mr. Wallace is by profession an attorney and has considerable experience in international administrative and employment law, as well as in international legal administrative systems. He began his legal career in the International Law Division at the Attorney General's Department and is currently director of the private company Manley Wallace and Sons. His previous roles at the international level include tenures at the United Nations Secretariat in the Office of Administration of Justice and the Department of Management. He has also served as a member of the prosecution team on the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. In keeping with his commitment to Jamaica and the people of Jamaica, Mr. Wallace also served as a senator in the Jamaican Parliament, where he contributed to debates on various bills and issues brought before that august body, including the Charter of Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. To move his notes of welcome, please, Ambassador Brian Wallace, over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm very humbled by your introduction, and I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time today, because this event is blessed with many more interesting speakers than you could possibly hope to hear from me. I'm looking at a list of very impressive presenters who will be joining the event over the course of the 2 days, including, of course, Senator the Honorable Aubin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, who will headline the presentations. I would like to offer the warmest possible welcome from a very chilly New York, but on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade and the Permanent Secretary, this is the second staging of this event. The last one was quite successful, and this one is lining up to be even more so. The opportunities for investment in Jamaica are abounding at the moment. The country is ripe for investment, and it is certainly my view, and clearly the view of all of us who are gathered today, that we must strike while the iron is hot. The global environment is also ripe for outgoing investment from countries like the United States. And outsourcing is something that Jamaica can take a lot of advantage of. As I said, I will not take up a great deal of your time today, but I would like to acknowledge the efforts of Consul General Wilson in putting this event together, and to wish for all of you a successful staging, and have no doubt that it will be interesting and informative and will lead to great investment in Jamaica, to the mutual benefit of Jamaica and Jamaicans, and those friends of Jamaica who will invest. So have a great event, and I bid you farewell for today.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much. We hope you'll be able to stick around and share with us and partake of some of the banter back and forth as we continue to forward the interests of our country.
I had intended to, but unfortunately we have going on right at the moment this elephant in the room, which is the war in Ukraine. And an emergency session of the General Assembly is currently ongoing. And I am slated to speak in about half an hour or so. So I'm going to leave you now, unfortunately, and head back over there to participate in that discussion.
Okay, duty calls, Ambassador. We understand fully. And wish you good luck with your presentation.
Thank you.
We all pray for a speedy end to the crisis. Thank you very much. Thank you again for your comments. Okay, Senator, I will ask you to share your comments at this time.
Right, thank you very much then, Mr. Moderator. Ambassador, well, it's not Ambassador Brian Wallace, he's moved on, but Mrs. Asean Wilson, ODN Consul General of Jamaica, New York, somebody who, as we have heard from the introduction, has done a tremendous amount of work for Jamaica and also in building her quite enviable career. Mr. Brett Silvers, President and CEO of World Business Capital. Mr. Ferris Jackson, Senior Portfolio Manager, Global Equities at Barita Investments Limited, media practitioners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Consul General Wood for, it's Wilson Wood, for your kind invitation to participate in this second staging of your forum, Investing in Jamaica. I'm honored to be here in my capacity as Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce to underscore Jamaica's readiness to do business with the rest of the world. Last week, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, announced the removal of most of the restrictions that the government implemented to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. After 2 years of prudent management of this crisis, and some gradual reopening of all industries, Jamaica is open for business even as we remain cautious and careful. Even in the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic, Jamaica maintained a very favorable investment climate. Over the last several months, we received a positive B2 rating by Moody's with a stable economic outlook. And earlier this month, Fitch affirmed the government's long-term foreign currency issue default rating at B+ and declared our outlook as stable. The Jamaica Stock Exchange, well regulated and internationally recognized recently by Massey, arguably Trinidad's biggest conglomerate, they came to Jamaica, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, to be listed, to be rather cross-listed, so that people in the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, the United States, wherever they are, that trade with Massey and see how well the company does, can actually buy their shares in Jamaica quite freely. There are no currency controls. As I said, the stock exchange is so well regulated. Bloomberg and others have recognized that, and Massey and others are recognizing that. So our independent central bank also signals our commitment to financial system stability. We're developing a central bank digital currency, JAMDEX it is called, and is now in the pilot testing phase and will shortly be introduced to the full market to provide faster, safer, and more discreet transactions between merchants and customers. We're party to several bilateral agreements that make doing business in Jamaica easier for foreign investors. In fact, Jamaica is a very inviting and comfortable investment destination. These include bilateral tax treaties, which we aim to avoid double taxation with countries including the United States, Canada, France, and Germany, as well as CARICOM countries. Our readiness to attract investments includes strengthening our capacity to respond to our investors' need for a trained pool of competent and proficient local employees. In this regard, we have partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank on a 5-year undertaking. It's called the Global Digital Services Sector Task Force that will train our workforce in knowledge processing outsourcing, KPO, information technology outsourcing, ITO, and of course, business processing outsourcing, and BPO, which everybody knows. I will chair that task force. The project is intended to improve the skills development system in Jamaica to provide the GSS with better skilled workers in order to secure higher level value added jobs. BPOs are big business in Jamaica. We have seen growth throughout the pandemic, and currently the sector employs above 46,000 persons, which is a higher number than when the pandemic struck us in early 2020. As the country fills a growing need in the marketplace, this is a space for investing. I want to tell you a little bit about the World Free Zone Organization annual international conference, an exhibition that is going to be hosted in Jamaica, Montego Bay, in fact, between the 13th and 17th of June this year. The Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority, an agency of this ministry, successfully competed in Barcelona in 2019 to host the World Free Zone Organization's annual conference and exhibition in 2022, and we are leading the organizing this conference. This will be the biggest event in Jamaica since the onset of the pandemic. With the recent lifting of restrictions, we know that AIC, we call it ICE, will provide a grand opportunity for prospective investors to explore possibilities of investing in these special zones. We expect approximately 1,500 delegates from over 140 countries, and we certainly will make every effort to make sure that they enjoy their time in Jamaica. The World Trade Organization hasn't had a face-to-face conference in over 2 years, and so this one in Jamaica is scheduled to be not just inviting, but really a big plus and boon to the World Free Zone Organization. And Jcsd, the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority, is organizing that well. Jamaica, therefore, is open and ready to welcome your investments. The ministry that I lead is known as Jamaica's Business Ministry, and the agencies under my portfolio, about 22 of them, are prepared to fulfill the government's commitment to maintaining and facilitating and enabling a very good and welcoming business environment. I look forward to discussions with you regarding investment opportunities in Jamaica now and at other times. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for those words. Exciting times ahead for us. As you have indicated, we certainly look forward to the progress of the task force you mentioned, and also to the event June 13th to 17th in Montego Bay. Thank you very much for your time, sir, and I hope that you'll be able to hang around with us a little bit through the course of this evening.
Yeah, I'll be here with you for a while.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Our next presenter is none other than the Consul General of Jamaica, New York. It's Asean Wilson herself. Asean Wilson was born and raised in Berkshire Hall, St. Catherine, Jamaica. She's currently the 11th Consul General to New York, having been appointed in July 2019. Under her jurisdiction, Ambassador Wilson assumed responsibilities for Jamaican nationals' interests in several territories, 33 states within the United States, plus Bermuda and Puerto Rico. Prior to her appointment, Consul General garnered extensive experience in the financial services sector, where she worked for years in a number of financial services companies in various posts. She's a former Bear Stearns Vice President and Associate Director. In her long-standing belief of giving back, her history of philanthropy is really endless. CG Wilson founded the Jamaica Open New York Golf Championship, which formed part of Jamaica's 52nd independence anniversary in a few years ago, New York City. And she has amassed an array of awards and recognitions over the time. It's now the time of Mrs. Asean Wilson, Consul General, Jamaica, New York, to again join us for the second year in a row with her bright smile and energy to lead the charge as we go forward into this continued partnership. Help us to chart the course for a nice evening today and tomorrow. We would ask Consul General now to bring her welcome. Welcome, Consul General.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Gooden. Thank you for having me on this year again. Of course, I don't know, Mr. Gooden is very, very modest. He's been a long-time friend of mine. And he's also the business development manager at the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Please allow me, though, to acknowledge my co-host for this forum, Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, the Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I am pleased to also acknowledge my dear friend, Senator, the Most Honorable Albin Ill, Minister of Industry, Investment, and Commerce. His Excellency, Ambassador Brian Wallace, our permanent representative to the UN, distinguished presenters, moderators, participating financial institutions from Jamaica and the US, Jamaicans at home and abroad, along with Friends of Jamaica joining us live on this platform and Facebook and other media platforms. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a warm good evening. It is with an absolute pleasure that I extend to you all a warm welcome to the second staging of a highly anticipated Investment in Jamaica Forum. I'm also delighted to again join forces with the Jamaica Stock Exchange to co-host the second staging of this important forum. Special thanks, therefore, to Minister Hale for providing an excellent overview of Jamaica's strong macroeconomic framework and enabling business environment as among the best in the Caribbean. Doing business in the #1 island in the Caribbean, Jamaica, is certainly very easy. Indeed, we remain committed to making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and of course, to do business. My presentation for this evening, which is entitled Working to Connect the Diaspora with Jamaica, helping to unleash Jamaica's potential, will be fairly simple. As Jamaica ranks #1 in the Caribbean in terms of ease of doing business and 6th in the world in terms of starting a business, in fact, the data from 2020 United Nations Conference on Trade and Development World Investment Report showed that Jamaica was the highest FDIC destination in the English-speaking Caribbean, working to connect our diaspora. Therefore, to such a profitable environment remains a top priority for the government of Jamaica, especially given the prospects of unleashing our people's fullest potential. As the minister pointed out, the government has taken the necessary steps to improve our investment climate, which has resulted in extremely capital-free market, with a stock exchange that allows companies to cross-list, thereby giving access to other investment opportunities in the region. As the country with the best performing stock exchange in the world for 2 years, 2015 and 2018, Jamaica has claimed its rightful place among the financial miracles ripe for investment picking. This, ladies and gentlemen, points to the undeniable fact that there is a lot of money to be made in our Jamaica. In fact, our foreign investors who have become our valued friends have seen the potential and have made millions in our country. According to the 2021 investment climate statements, Jamaica received US $665 million in foreign direct investment in 2019. This further demonstrates that there is an equal opportunity for all Jamaicans, irrespective of the size of their bank accounts or lack thereof, to have a piece of the Jamaican pie. My job is to bring to your awareness the information that will empower your decision-making for a better and more prosperous future. Investment, my friends, is not only the right and privilege of the wealthy, it is also the right and privilege of the members of our working class. The potential of our diaspora and the wider community can only be unlocked when we take the first step, which is to invest. Keeping our hard-earned income under the mattress or in your bank accounts will not grant you the financial freedom and empowerment you truly deserve. Sadly, investment hesitancy has held many of our people back. However, I am confident that as a people driven by a sense of urgency and greatness, we can overcome these fears and leap into the financial space that we want for ourselves and our children. A crucial part of this process can also be achieved through and broadening of our respective income base to ensure sustainability and reliance. Sustainability and resilience. Diversifying our income portfolio, which rests at the heart of this process, is only a matter of a simple conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange and the extraordinary team of financial experts assembled for our forum. Our team of presenters will help you take stock of the many financial and investment opportunities in Jamaica and of course also in the US. In this regard, please allow me to say an extra special thank you in advance to my list of incredible presenters whose wealth of knowledge and experience will be shared with us today. Of course, free of cost. Although I'm certain that the JC will also cover this topic, please allow me to point out that all it takes for you to open a brokerage account is your TRN, a government issue ID, proof of address, proof of income, and 2 references. Having said the above, kindly allow me to briefly share my office role as an important bridge that continues to connect our Jamaican diaspora to the many opportunities back home and also here in the US. In fact, under our economic diplomacy program and diaspora engagement and empowerment strategy for 2019 and 2021, my office convened and coordinated over 50 business meetings. Therefore, one of our first roles is that our convening and coordinating power. By convening and coordinating these meetings, my office brought together members of our Jamaican diaspora, governmental authorities, financial and business institutions, both here and back home. The outcomes resulted in numerous partnerships being forged, as well as the foundation being laid for increased engagement for our community's success. In the interest of time, I will only highlight one prominent example for our ambitious coordinating machinery. Last year, my office coordinated with Fox 5 New York to shine the spotlight on our hardworking Jamaican business diaspora, products, and services. This series was widely received by both our Jamaican and US-based audience, thus leading to greater attention for brand Jamaica. The second way we connect the diaspora to Jamaica and the many opportunities for their prosperity is through the leveraging of our extraordinary network base of financial and business partners, both here in the US and back home. This, of course, we undertake in tandem with the government of Jamaica's economic diplomacy program in partnership with JAMPRO. In addition, having transitioned from corporate America to the role of Consul General, I have been able to incorporate, leverage, and offer the best of both worlds to our Jamaican diaspora. My office, consequently, has and continues to work assiduously together with JAMPRO and the Jcsd, as well as our partners here in the US, to amplify our community's connection to viable opportunities. In fact, we have elevated this process by assembling our very own in-house economic diplomacy and investment committee. We have further enhanced this process through the addition of an unofficial honorary investment advisor with his finger on the business and financial pulse here in the US, Mr. Sean Anthony Brown, Assistant Vice President of Investors Bank. I will share one example of how we leverage our extraordinary network base for our diaspora's benefit. To close out 2021, we organized the first mega cultural and business showcase with 3 countries, Turkey, South Africa, and Japan, representing 3 economically advanced continents. This saw a significant increase in requests for further engagement for both our business and artistic communities. As we allow the rewarding of excellence begets more excellence. As such, with regard to the third role, my office has been deliberate in its approach to engage and empower our nationals through soft incentives, such as the Consul General's Heritage Awards. Through this prestigious award, we have honored and recognized outstanding nationals in the diaspora for their contribution to development, both in the respective geographic domains and back home. Through our Heritage Awards, we have seen closer cultural connectivity with our Jamaican roots, especially given our expansion of categories to include reggae music as the musical lifeblood of Jamaica. Furthermore, this contributes to the increased promotion of Jamaica's artistic excellence across the globe. For this year, my office has expanded our calendar of activities to facilitate greater connection with our Jamaican community for their continued engagement and empowerment. In closing, through these 3 primary roles, which are our convening and coordinating power, the leveraging of our network base, diaspora empowerment through soft incentives, the Consulate General of Jamaica has employed a comprehensive approach towards connecting our diaspora to Jamaica, as well as opportunities that will unleash their fullest potential. I am extremely proud of the strong legacy of excellence of our people and of the significant strides made over the course of the last 60 years of independence. The decisions we take today, especially as it relates to the actions towards investments, can certainly reignite our nations for greatness, which is the theme for our 60th anniversary of independence. I am confident, therefore, that through forums like these, we will certainly achieve the long-held dream of all Jamaicans for a prosperous and resilient future. Let us all invest in ourselves in order to leave a lasting legacy for our children. Finally, if you are still uncertain about how to invest in stocks, bonds, and other investment portfolios, please feel free to always ask. I am, of course, only an email away. Our presenters are equally motivated and equipped to respond as we all seek to empower you and your financial journey towards creating the future that you want and, of course, truly deserve. Finally, kindly allow me to say a special thank you to my hard-working team, the hardest working team in the business, especially my Economic Diplomacy and Investment Committee and partners for organizing today's forum. Thank you for joining us. Please do enjoy. One love.
Thank you very much, Madam CG. And it is our honor to be partnering with you again this year on this initiative. Really, with our objective really being to sensitize investors from within the diaspora and others in the US about the investment climate in Jamaica, exploring opportunities in the equity and bond markets for investors, and of course, laying the foundation for investments to flow into our country. Thank you again for the partnership as we continue to strive to continue to develop. Certainly, the enthusiasm is there as it always has been, and we thank you for leading the charge in the United States. We are noticing, as happens every year, Madam CG, that questions are coming in from your presentation. How do I open an account? How do I get started? These questions are questions that come up every year, and that's why our presenters have to be, our assortment of presenters has to be so organized so that all those questions can be answered. One thing I will say is that all the brokers listed in Jamaica are on our website, and we have some of those brokers are here with us today. And if they look in the chat, they will see opportunities to interact with persons who want information on how to get started. So the two avenues, the stock exchange website has a list of all the brokers in Jamaica. If you want to open an account, that will be your first stop. And there are brokers online who I am sure during their presentation today and tomorrow will guide you as to what is required to start doing business with on the Jamaica Stock Exchange and in the capital markets in Jamaica generally. So thank you very much again, Madam CG. And we look forward to continuing this relationship. Brett Silvers. Brett has been on from about an hour ago. Happy to see you here, Brett. I want to introduce you properly to our audience, or who's hungry for information. Brett Silvers founded World Business Capital in January 2003, having previously been the chairman and chief executive officer of First International Bank, during which time he led that bank's expansion, a successful IPO, and sale to a Fortune 500 company. Brett Silvers serves on the Industry Trade Advisory Committee on Small and Minority Businesses of the U.S. Department of Commerce. He's also served on the board of the Regents of the University of Hartford and the board of directors of Private Export Funding Corporation, the New England Advisory Council of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, and the Advisory Committee of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. Brett has received a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Yale and a Master in Law and Diplomacy from the Fletcher School at Tufts University. With that kind of resume, sir, we expect to hear great things from you. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I hand you over to President CEO of World Business Capital, Mr. Brett Silvers. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you very much for your kind words and for your introduction. It's very nice to be back with you again. Consul General Wilson, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be with a group of old friends, old and dear friends. What I'd like to do this evening is talk a little bit about everybody's favorite topic, which is money and specifically debt financing and the debt financing tools that are available for the Jamaican business community, both to finance projects in Jamaica and to finance related projects in the United States. So I'll give you a little bit of background about World Business Capital. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. There we go. So a little bit about World Business Capital. We are an independent commercial finance company. We are based in Hartford, Connecticut, which I know is a city many of you know. It is, I believe, home to the third largest Jamaican diaspora population in the US. We are a finance company and a direct lender that makes loans that are generally between $3 and $20 million. We operate worldwide. We finance projects in the United States and a number of countries around the world. You'll see in a bit that we have a very strong commitment to the Jamaican community. We only make long-term loans, so we're very relationship oriented. And the way we structure our loans is in a way to help companies maximize their cash flow, and we offer attractive pricing. We do have a team of 20 multilingual professionals in Hartford. Next slide, please. We are experts in using a variety of US government loan guarantee programs to support the loans that we make. And in using these programs, we're able to offer our borrowers very attractive pricing and repayment terms. You have probably heard of a number of these government agencies: US Department of Agriculture, the Export-Import Bank, and the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, which is now the US Development Finance Corporation. When we make a loan, we're financing all kinds of business purposes, including commercial real estate, construction, equipment purchases, working capital, and refinancing existing debt. So our loans are actually quite good for a full range of expansion projects, turnarounds, mergers and acquisitions, and special situations. Next slide, please. I'll begin by talking about one of our very important loan programs specific for Jamaica. We offer long-term financing to Jamaican financial institutions in order to help them expand their capacity to offer financing for Jamaican small and mid-sized businesses. So we're quite familiar with the banks in Jamaica, especially the banks that focus themselves on SME lending. And going forward, we see a lot of opportunity to provide very attractive capital, both to credit unions in Jamaica and also financial cooperatives, and now the newly regulated microfinance sector. And again, we're making loans that are up to $20 million to these institutions for this purpose. Generally, when we're lending to a Jamaican financial institution, because the Jamaican economy is so strong, most of our loans in Jamaica now to these institutions are unsecured. Next slide, please. We also are increasing our commitment to lending to agri-food facilities in Jamaica. Now, we all know that worldwide food security is a top concern for the business communities and for our governments. So we're really redoubling our commitment to make attractive financing available in the agribusiness sector in Jamaica. We're very interested in providing long-term financing for all kinds of companies that process food, store food, both on a dry and refrigerated basis, transport food, and also building up port infrastructure and helping, in particular, private operators within the port infrastructure expand their facilities. Here too, with this program, we're lending up to $20 million, but in many cases, the loans that we make are much less than that, down to around the 2 to 3 million range. And we're securing ourselves only with the specific project assets that we are financing. Now, because we are making a loan and we're looking for a partial guarantee or obtaining a partial guarantee under a US government program, specifically US Department of Agriculture or the Development Finance Corp, it's always a good thing if we can demonstrate that the Jamaican Agri-Food project that we're financing could lead to increased purchases of US agricultural commodities or equipment, but it's not tied in any way. It's actually quite flexible financing. Next slide, please. Another thing that we do, and we have been doing this for many, many years, is providing financing to Jamaican buyers of US equipment, where we're providing very attractive financial terms to incent Jamaican businesses to buy from US partners. There are many programs offered by many countries around the world for this purpose. The financing that we provide is not only quite competitive, but now we're able to offer financing for purchases of technology, software, and business services. We like to finance buyers in Jamaica of not only industrial equipment, but medical, environmental, water treatment equipment, and equipment that's related to agricultural development and power generation. And I should say that our financing program is not only open to Jamaican businesses, but also Jamaican non-for-profits. So I know there is a lot of investment going into Jamaica's health sector, and we're very happy to provide financing to hospitals and clinics that might be operated on a not-for-profit basis. Here, our financing, again, it's up to 20 million, but we're very happy to offer this financing in much lower amounts to smaller and middle market businesses and projects. That last point is actually an error that I forgot to correct from last year. What we're doing is actually issuing letters of credit. We are issuing letters of credit to the US exporter and taking the risk, all of the risk of the Jamaican buyer of the equipment. We're very happy to do that. Next slide, please. I think you might find this interesting as well. We're seeing increased interest in this. We're very happy to finance Jamaican direct investment coming into the US. So these, of course, would be more established Jamaican companies that are looking to extend their franchises into the US market to help serve the diaspora community. But of course, the Jamaican business community is quite sophisticated. So we are seeing inquiries for Jamaican businesses to make acquisitions and do joint ventures that may or may not be related to the diaspora community. And we're very happy to offer financing to do it. The sectors where we see a lot of interest are distribution, logistics, and I don't mention it here, but retail expansion as well. With this program, we have a lot of firepower, up to $20 million, but we're also very willing to work with Jamaican direct investors in the US market that have a financing need that is much less than that. And in this case, we're looking, in many cases, to secure ourselves with the assets in the United States that the Jamaican company is investing in, so we don't disrupt existing business relationships with the Jamaican banks. Now, this program does have some geographical limitations to the extent that we are obtaining partial risk insurance from a US government agency as a US lender. This is a program that's not really meant for downtown urban investment in the US, but the reality is that most suburban areas outside of core urban areas in the US would qualify for our financing. And in fact, that's where we see a lot of Jamaican and other foreign investment coming into the US market. Next slide, please. So I think we're at the point, if we have time, Andre, I'm not quite sure what you would like to do with the remaining time, but of course, I'm very happy to answer questions either here and going forward.
Great. Thank you very much. Good presentation. Shows that there are opportunities out there. There is a question in the group regarding the process of applying for a loan for agricultural equipment and machinery. Is there any special package for that sector, one? And two, the process and what an approximation of what the rates would be?
It's actually quite a simple process. So if it's a Jamaican company that is looking to buy U.S. agricultural commitment, the company would have to give us an idea of what the equipment is, who the suppliers might be, and then we would need their financial information under an NDA that we're very happy to sign with them. Generally, we're working with privately owned businesses, so we know that there's a lot of sensitivity about providing financial information, but ultimately, we would be looking to make a direct long-term loan based on the Jamaican buyer's credit. So we'd need to see their financial information. Now, in terms of interest rate, Andre, I still haven't met a banker that actually in a forum like this would actually say what the interest rates are, but I'm happy to say that they're probably too low. And in any case, kidding aside, I think you'd find our rates to be very competitive. We're lending in a market like this. You may remember that I mentioned that we're making medium and long-term loans. So the all-in cost of our financing is quite competitive. In today's market, we're probably still not looking at more than 5 to 5.5%. And that's even with the rate increases worldwide that we have seen. But like a good salesman, because we're in a rising rate environment, it's time to get that financing now while the rates are really low.
Right, thank you. Do you accept as collateral equity portfolios or anything like that? That's another question that came directly to me in terms of security for some of the facilities.
It's a very good question. We actually don't. So we're more, and I know that a lot of the questions here will be about equity investing and portfolio management, but we're really middle market business lenders. So, and that's probably a good thing for most of the prospective borrowers because we're really looking only for what is built up in the business and not support with outside equity portfolios or personal investments.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'm going to ask you to do, Brett, there are a couple other questions I think are going to be popping in the group. I've seen a couple, and in the interest of time, I'd ask if you could just put some contact details for the appropriate person in your organization that can be contacted for further information in the interest of time. But I certainly thank you on behalf of the team and CG, our partner as well, for the very insightful presentation, and it shows that there's hope definitely for persons looking to, Jamaican buyers looking to move, do business overseas. And we hope that the return leg will be able to be facilitated soon as well. So if you could just, in the chat, when you have opportunity to do so, put some information about the contact details for World Business Capital, the appropriate business development person, so that our people online can make some direct link. Thank you very much.
Very good. This was a great privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brett. Great job. All right. Our next presenter is none other than coming back home now to the Senior Portfolio Manager, Global Equities at Barita Investments, one of the local asset managers, brokerage houses in Jamaica. Mr. Ferris Jackson, former co-worker of mine. Ferris joined Barita Investments in 2016 as an investment analyst. And he quickly transitioned to the position of equity trader and has been committed to the growth and the success of Barita's Capital Growth Fund, which is an equity-linked fund, which is one of the better performing funds locally. With over 14 years of experience in the financial industry, he has assumed the role of portfolio manager in addition to overseeing equity trading activities. Mr. Jackson Ferris holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics and Statistics from the University of West Indies. He's a certified financial risk manager by the Global Association of Risk Professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ferris Jackson from Barita Investments. Good afternoon, Ferris.
Yes, good afternoon, moderator. Yes, thanks to you, Mr. Moderator, Andre Gooden. And to the Jamaica Stock Exchange and the Consulate General Office of New York. I also wanted to say a special acknowledgement to Ambassador Brian Wallace, Senator, the Honorable Corbin Hill, and Consul General Mrs. Asean Wilson, fellow presenters and participants. I'm really happy to be here, and I hope that this is the beginning of a journey in terms of your relationship with Barita or another broker if you choose. But I hope that we learn a lot from this presentation. It's a diverse audience, so my presentation will be quite basic, but at the same time, I'll try to tackle the more complex matters at the moment. So I'll just share my screen with you. Yes, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, Ferris.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so the topic is navigating Jamaica's stock market to create wealth. I know that's something that many members of the diaspora actually would want to know because, of course, they would have heard a couple of times in the past few years that Jamaica is the best, Jamaica Stock Exchange is the best performing stock exchange in the world. So I'll just give you a few takeaways as it relates to this presentation. Tactical and strategic allocations to equities necessary for optimal portfolio returns. And what I mean by tactical, you're making adjustments based on changing market conditions, which we'll get into later. And then you have a strategic allocation, which is what is it that you are doing over the long run that fits well with your overall risk tolerance and your risk objectives. Now, equities present an opportunity to create wealth over the long run. And we'll see that when we get into the presentation. And then, of course, COVID-19 related uncertainties remain, including the duration and magnitude of inflationary trends. And inflation is the buzzword that we're hearing now. And of course, we all know what inflation is, but we'll get into that as well. And then you have the Russia and Ukraine conflict, which started February 24th. You know, that of course had a negative impact on stock exchanges around us. And of course, viable investment options for you. Now, given that our diverse audiences, and I was told to go basic, I'll just go into what is a stock, right? Or what is equities, what is shares, what is ordinary shares. You'll hear those terms interchangeably. And of course, you might very well get confused because somebody mentioned stocks first, and then down in the conversation, they start talking about equities. And it's about, I don't answer the link. Well, they're all the same, and they can be used interchangeably. Now, of course, a stock represents a unit of ownership in a company. Now, when you become an equity owner or a stock owner of a public company, that is, then you're a part owner of the business, right? You are now a business owner, right? And you help to make decisions that shape the direction of the company, and that might include changing the capital structure. Say, for example, the company is raising additional capital, then it will go to the shareholders. And of course, the election of directors who are essential in shaping the direction of the organization. Essentially, you just want to bear in mind when you own stocks, you're a part owner of a company. So I remember I was going to a story where I met a client once, and she's a business owner. And she said to me, look, I don't want to buy any stocks because the stocks are risky. But I said to her, but look, you are a business owner, and essentially you own a company, and that's what you do when you buy stocks. I said, oh, I understand. You know, so bear that in mind. You can actually think of yourself as the business owner. Now, yes, you're a business owner, but why? Why do I buy stocks? Well, the first thing is wealth creation. You know, stocks outperform other investments over the long run, thus providing the best hedge against inflation and creating wealth. So I'll just give you an example here. The main Jcsd index has grown by 1,648% since December 1999. So just imagine $1 million back then, what that investment would worth today, 17.8 million. Of course, that's as of March 17. Now, of course, you can't quite invest in the Jcsd index, but it represents a basket of stocks that you could have invested in. So if you invested in those stocks, then you could have seen returns that are greater or less. And if you closely align with the overall index, then it could be closer to that. And of course, we'll give you an option for that, or you do that down in the presentation. Now, you also want to buy stocks to generate income, right? Now, how do you generate income? When companies make a profit, they distribute some of that profit to shareholders in the form of dividends. And dividends in Jamaica, they are taxed at 15% for ordinary shares. But of course, some preference shares is taxed at nil. So you get everything, right? So you get the income, and of course, you get the capital gain. So you'll hear the term capital gain. That's when the price increases over time. And of course, you have portfolio diversification as well. So depending on your risk tolerance, you might be a conservative investor, but nonetheless, when you buy stocks, it will help to minimize the negative effects of inflation if you're primarily a conservative investor. Or if you're an aggressive investor, then you will certainly outperform inflation over the long run. Now, I'll just give you an overview of the local stock market, because I can understand many persons outside will say, oh, this Jamaican Stock Exchange, I mean, I don't understand it. So the JSC will go in detail on the exchange, but I'll just give you from my perspective. So there's one exchange in Jamaica, and that's the Jamaica Stock Exchange, right? And it's demutualized in the sense that you have a commercial arm and a regulatory arm, and that regulatory arm, the Regulatory and Market Oversight Division, they report to a committee on the board that consists of independent directors. So regulation is in place at the stock exchange. So it's a market that is focused on fairness and efficiency, and it's rules-based. And of course, you have the main market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, those are larger companies, and then you have the junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, which consists of small companies, growth-oriented companies, and then you have a US dollar market as well. And the market capitalization of the Jamaica Stock Exchange up to March 17 is 1.89 trillion Jamaican dollars. That's Jamaican dollars, yes. And for the junior market, it's 186 billion Jamaican dollars. I think it was important to keep it in Jamaican dollars. And of course, investors have the opportunity to invest in over 140 securities, 52 companies on the main market and 44 companies on the junior market. And they have 2 on the US dollar market. Now, how has the stock market worked for investors? Now, just looking at that graph right there, you're seeing a movement from bottom left to top right. Of course, it somewhat pulled back around 2020. And of course, we all know why. But what are the reasons why the stock exchange and the stock market has improved so much over the years? Well, for one, it's a dynamic exchange that has increased the options for companies to raise capital. Of course, companies list to raise capital to expand, grow. And I'll give you an example, the junior market, which was started in 2009 with one company, and that company is still listed. Then you have rule changes, for example. So they amended the circuit breaker rule. So what that is, it's a rule that governs how stock prices move on any given day. It was 15% before 29th November 2014. Afterwards, they expanded that range up to 30% to the upside or 30% to the downside. And that allowed for stocks to realize their true value at a faster pace. So if you look at the graph again, we moved straight up after November 2014. And of course, then there's a general improvement in the local economic environment. So in 2013, we started an arrangement with IMF to help stabilize economic activity. And that's done very well for us in Jamaica. In terms of us having a fiscal rule, for us to be more disciplined as it relates to managing our books. So in 2009, our debt to GDP ratio was 142%. Now we're talking about it going below 100%, even though we had COVID-19 and we had to make adjustments. So we're moving in the right direction in that regard. And then, of course, confidence that companies placed in the local market, providing investors with more options. So with more options for investors, investors continue to pour money into the stock exchange. Now that's why we're seeing that graph moving up so much over the years. And of course, we look at the graph for the junior market, 3,876% since inception in 2009. And I mentioned one company then, and now we have over 40 companies now. And another increase, reason for the increase, in addition to what we mentioned before, for the main market, will of course increase in attractive new listings and growth in investor confidence. Now, we look at current market developments. So what I've highlighted was the past. So what's happening right now? We have higher inflation, right? So in Jamaica, 10.7% inflation, point to point, up to February, most recent reading, right? And of course, inflation is a bad word because it makes everyone poorer. In other words, the money you have today cannot buy the same set of goods that you normally buy. It's either you're spending more to buy the same stuff goods, or you're going to have to buy less of the same set of, less goods with the same amount of money. Right, so inflation is a challenge there. You have to look at how you can beat that. And of course, the higher interest rate environment. The BOJ increased interest rate from 50 basis points or 0.5%, and it has now increased to 4% at February 2022. And it started that increase in September 2021. And that's the primary reason behind that is to deal with the challenge of inflation, because it's having an adverse effect on the Jamaican people. And of course, recent activity, COVID measures relaxed. So other people can go up there and party right now. But that's good for the economy. When you have the relaxation of measures, you should see an increase in economic activities. And that would benefit a lot of listed companies that, for example, have exposure to the entertainment industry. So that's a positive that we're seeing right there. And growth projection is 4.3% for 2022. And for 2021, it's projected, although we've seen the end of that period, about 4.1%. Same region, which is above trend, by the way. And of course, there are still worries, of course. Tail risk event, because COVID, well, I don't believe that we'll re-enter in a period of lockdown, but nonetheless, we're seeing that in China, right? And they're taking a very strict approach in terms of dealing with COVID-19. But nonetheless, it's still a risk. And of course, the low vaccination rate that we have here, 26.1% versus 64.5%, and it doesn't really help our cause. So still, it's a balancing act for each and every one of us as it relates to COVID-19 and the recent risk in terms of what's taking place in Ukraine, Russian invasion of the Ukraine, and the negative impact that will have on the global economy. Now, having mentioned those risks, how do investors position themselves in this market, right? So there are several things that investors can do. right? So you want, when you're selecting a company, there are things that you consider, right? For example, pricing power, right? So these are companies that are able to pass on some or all of the price increases to consumers, because you want a company that can maintain its profit margin. In other words, you have higher prices, the company is absorbing everything, they're making less profit. And that's not necessarily a viable option for the company long term. So you want a company that is able to maintain its profit margin despite the environment that we're operating in. Then you have a solid management team. You want to look at managers who can focus on cost containment, which is important in terms of helping to maintain those profit margins, right? And of course, you want to have companies whose managers can pivot, make adjustments in this environment to take advantage of disruptions in supply chain. So some companies now, junior market and main market, they are looking at exporting to fill gaps filled because of the supply chain disruption. So you want to look at companies like those. You don't want those companies that they're saying, boy, the lockdown measures have had a negative impact on our operations, and this is why we've suffered. That's not necessarily what you want from your managers. You want managers who can identify opportunities despite the market situation, identifying opportunities in a crisis, because crises present opportunities for investors. And of course, you want beneficiaries of higher rates. So despite the fact that interest rates are rising, and you say, boy, I can't afford a mortgage anymore. The car loan, I wanted to buy that car. I remember a client said to me, boy, I'm not buying at the bank, the bank too thief. That's a word he used, because the interest rate too high, that was then, But I said to him, but you want to, if the interest rates are high and you're able to do that, then you want to put yourself in a position where you can benefit from that. Own the shares. I said, well, yeah, could do that. So you want to benefit from those companies as well. And of course, balance sheet, strong balance sheet, companies will not only be able to operate without external funding, which will be more expensive in a rising rate environment, but will also make them adequately placed for inorganic growth opportunities and expansion, meaning takeovers, right? You want companies with adequate cash flow, cash on the balance sheet, so that they will not take on more loans and increase their interest costs, which would weigh on their profits. And of course, from an investment standpoint, when you're investing, you want to look at liquid companies that you can get in and out of quickly. Of course, that's not there, and deliberately so, because there are a number of considerations, things that you have to take into consideration when it comes to investing. I'm going to put everything here, so it means that you should have that dialogue, that conversation with your investment advisor. Now, 2 financial solutions offered by Barita Investments Limited. The first one is equity exposure through our unit trust. And that unit trust is our capital growth fund. So before I mentioned that you can beat inflation by investing in a basket of stocks, and I said later on, I'd mentioned that. And this is through the Capital Growth Fund. Now, the Capital Growth Fund is a pooled fund, which predominantly consists of stocks or shares, and a mix of investments that feature Barita's Capital Growth Fund that meets our portfolio goals of growth and security. So pooled fund essentially is different investors coming together, buying assets or giving their money to the fund manager, who in turn gives them units, and the fund manager takes that money and buy assets. And of course, the improvement in the asset prices will increase the value of the units. And over time, the Capital Growth Fund has done very well for unit holders. So when you look at the performance, total return since inception, that's in 1993, 9,257%. It's a lot. The 5-year average annual return is 17%, 3-year average annual return 10%, and last year, 2021, was 8.35%. And we've been beating the overall market over the past at least 3 years. And of course, the 3-year average annual is skewed by the fact that we had COVID-19 in 2020. But of course, we're consistent in how we present our data. So that's how it's presented to you. But there are years when we have up to over 30% growth. That's in 2019, for example, right? So it has grown for investors over the years. And why do you want to buy the Capital Growth Fund, right? Stocks present a unique opportunity for capital gain, right? They generally grow faster than other assets. And the fund has a dedicated fund manager who makes tactical decisions, adjusting the portfolio based on changing market conditions to allow for it to outperform as we have been doing over the past few years. And investors gain broad-based exposure to equities with a limited amount of capital. So 100 units minimum get you in, and the price was $93.57. So that's $9,357. That's it. And you can add over time or as you so desire. You mean you add monthly, if you're a monthly paid worker, you can add as you so desire. It's quite easy. And the fund is very liquid. It's very important that you invest in liquid assets because as an investor, you'll need cash from time to time. So the fund is very liquid and it's easy. There's easy entry and exit. And of course, of a small minimum period, 3 months for you to hold your investment before any penalties applied. And of course, strong positive returns over the years. So if you want to make money, you can look at the Bilateral Capital Growth Fund. Now, I just want to give you, this graph shows you the performance of the Capital Growth Fund versus the main market and inflation. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. And you can look and you can observe 3,833% up to the point we compile the data. 3,833% is a whole lot. And when you look at the performance of the benchmark, 1,687%, and of course, inflation, which eats into your income, 541%. I don't know who in here can tell me that their salary increased by 541% over the last couple of years, right? So if you're depending on your salary, I can tell you, inflation would have given you a sound beating. But if you're invested in the Capital Growth Fund, then of course you'd have been quite comfortable, smiling. And of course you want to benefit from passive income. So it's very important for you to try to take advantage of the investment options available to you. So of course, this graph gives you an overview of the performance of the fund over time. And of course, we saw the pullback here. We're seeing the pullback here rather due to the effect of COVID-19. But of course, we have recovered since. So that's why it's important for you as investors to stay invested, because I know, when times like these, when we have time, COVID-19, people start panicking. What do I do? What do I do? We saw the stock price, the unit trust price falling. Am I going to lose everything? Right? Should I pull my money? I say to you, it's a long-term option for investors. And of course, stay invested. Speak to your investment advisor who will guide you along the way so that you can make the necessary adjustments to your portfolio so that you can take advantage of liquidity should the need arise, or you can outperform over time, as you have seen previously in the slide above. So you don't want to panic because we recovered, the fund has recovered since the pullback in COVID-19. Not to say, though, that you can't have a total collapse, but there's a bias upwards in markets. So therefore, the likelihood is that your fund will improve in value over time once it's managed properly. And that's what we do at Barito. We take investing seriously. Now, our FX growth portfolio is another option. Of course, not linked to local stocks, but it's another option that we provide to our investors who do business with Barito. And it's a US dollar denominated fund. And for investors who want to keep their money in US dollars, or investors who believe that they want to have a mix of US dollar or $J investments. It's an option for you. And the reason why you will invest in it, because the low investors take advantage of investment opportunities and a wide variety of instruments through a single investment option. So one investment option, several investment opportunities. The fund has a dedicated fund manager, which is important, and we monitor the fund performance on a daily basis, and we're backed by a solid research team. The fund is very liquid, so there's easy entry and exit. Of course, so when the prices are published, you can actually enter that price published, and you can actually exit at that price published as well, right? And the portfolio invests in foreign currency denominated ordinary preference shares of companies within the Commonwealth, CARICOM, and the US. And it extends to other sovereigns as prescribed by our regulator. So those are just 4 reasons why you'd want to invest in the FX portfolio. Now, 2021 was 8.36%, 3-year average annual return, which covers COVID, 12%, and the 5-year average annual return was 4%. Now, the 3-year average is higher than the 5-year average, and that's largely due to the fact that we had a change in strategy in terms of the build-out of our asset management team in 2019. And as a result of that, we changed the strategy, and the focus was on ensuring that we have positive year-over-year growth in our fund. Even though you invest for the long term, we try to manage volatility while generating positive returns for our unit holders. So looking at the performance, I mentioned 2019 April, you look at the line, it's moving nicely in the right direction. Of course, it was impacted by COVID-19, but nonetheless, it recovered and it's moving nicely in the right direction. Right now, we're seeing the effects of, 1, the uncertainty taking place in the international markets due to the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia, as well as a shift in terms of interest rate policy because of high inflation. It's not just in Jamaica, but it's across the globe. And when you have a shift in interest rates to the upside, then of course, equities will be affected somewhat, but what you're really seeing is investors adjusting in terms of their portfolio. So you're seeing those high-flying, high PE stocks pulling back significantly, those tech stocks pulling back because of the expectation of rising interest rates. But nonetheless, we monitor the market and we look at taking advantage of opportunities whenever they present themselves. And of course, right here, we're seeing our allocation 70% in terms of equities right now. We're holding some cash to take advantage of opportunities and to limit the risk to the portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ferris. Excellent presentation there. I saw CG taking notes and nodding profusely as she's really in tune with what you're saying, as we all are. We're kind of trying to manage some time, but I have one question for you, which is, you mentioned how to pick certain stocks in an inflationary environment and in a high environment where interest rates are rising, but you didn't say much about, if you have an existing portfolio, what do you do to that portfolio? Not to pick new stocks, but how do you have an existing portfolio? How do you manage that portfolio in an inflationary environment and in a higher interest rate environment? I want to give a quick answer for that one, if you could, please.
Well, very quick answer. Talk to your investment advisor, but nonetheless, you always have to evaluate your portfolio, understand exactly what you're invested in, and then you make the adjustments. So I mentioned in the presentation before, tactical adjustments. Yes, you have your long-term strategic objectives, but of course, from time to time, you have to make adjustments based on the change in market condition. My email address is right there, f.jackson@barita.com. So if you have any questions, you can always feel free to email me. And of course, we can have that conversation. This will be the beginning of an extended conversation. And of course, when you're investing, it's a journey, and the journey can be rocky. So it's important for you to understand, of course, you're going to have bumps along the way, but it's how do you pivot when you have the obstacles? And I think that that's very important for investors to understand, especially the beginners.
Thank you very much, Ferris. Excellent. There are a couple of questions in the chat I want to direct your attention to as we move on. One person wants to know how to get involved in the Capital Growth Fund, so I'll ask you to provide some direction on that. And there's another question concerning exchange rate risk in an environment like this. So if you could just take a peep in the chat and answer those, I'm sure the queries will be thankfully received. The answers will be thankfully received. So thank you very much, Ferris. Excellent, excellent presentation, chock full of knowledge. And his email address is f.jackson, am I correct, at burrito.com. So if you need to reach out for him outside of this forum, you may do so. Thank you very much, Ferris.
Thank you.
All right, next I'm going to ask my colleague. I mean, one of the questions always coming up to us in these fora is how do we handle our dividends? How do we manage our existing accounts, even if we're not physically present? We have with us Tamika Ricketts, my colleague, who's the assistant manager of the Registrar Services Unit of the Jamaica Central Securities Depository. And her topic will really focus on how to manage your dividends. Tamika's responsibilities consist mainly of overseeing the operations of the Registrar Services Unit, which includes management of public offers, APOs, IPOs, private placements, rights issues, and significantly, the disbursement of dividends and interest payments and other corporate actions as well. Tamika has over 10 years experience in this industry, financial services industry, and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Management Studies, and she's a certified associate in project management. Please help me welcome to the virtual podium, Tamika Ricketts.
All right, thank you very much for that warm welcome, Andre. I'm really honored to be a part of this forum, and I hope that everyone that has joined us so far has found it very informative, and you are really learning and being able to actually move forward with investment opportunities. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to charge you with this while I take the time to share my screen, that if you have not gotten a piece of paper or a book and a pen, you can just take a few seconds to just grab that so that you're able to even write down at least one thing that you want to take away from this overall forum and this overall session. I know sometimes, you know, our memory will fail us, so having written it down, you can go back to look at it and say, what did Ferris say about this again? Or, you know, what did Tamika say about this? You can just write down the important aspects that really hit home for you. So while you do that, and I want you to also do that for the session tomorrow, so that even in terms of contact details, you can note that and knowing how to move forward with the areas that you have particular interest in. So let me share my screen. Can you share for me, Adonique, please? All right, I think I have it here.
Yes, we got it.
Just a little bit of technical glitch there, but I hope you took the time to grab your pen and paper. All right, so what I will be presenting on this afternoon is as it relates to securing your dividends. So Ferris would have mentioned an aspect of generating income when you invest. All right, so when you invest in a company, there are different ways that you earn, right? It can be in terms of the appreciation in value, and another one that I will be speaking on is as it relates to getting dividends. So what is a dividend? You may ask yourself. So this is a distribution of some of a company's earnings to a class of its shareholders as determined by the company's board of directors. So say, for example, you participated in an IPO. You are now a part owner of that company as a shareholder. And when the company declares a dividend, then you are entitled to this payment once you are on record as a shareholder as at the declared record date. So one function of my department, as Andre said in his introduction, is that the registrar services manages the payout of dividends for companies that we manage. So these can be companies that are listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and we also manage private companies. So if it is a case that the company declares a payment, you're on record as at the record date, then as I said before, you're entitled to dividend payment. So simply put, a share of the profit, a share of the pie. So as the picture is alluding to there, this profit or the earnings of the company is actually split up amongst the shareholders, and you get your slice of the pie. All right, so as it relates to disbursing this dividend payment now, if it is a case that you did not provide direct deposit instructions, then what will happen is that you will get a check from us in the mail based on the address that you have on record on your Jcsd account. So let us flip it now that you actually did provide a mandate. So what is this mandate? So a mandate represents instructions provided to the Jcsd relating to the handling of your dividend or interest payment. What does that mean? The handling of your dividend or interest payment. What that means is you would indicate to us to say, okay, for this dividend payment, I want it to go directly to my bank account, which can be a commercial bank account, or you can say, no, I want this to go back to my broker, and you provide us with the instructions on that account maintained at your brokerage house. So once you provide us with that mandate, what will happen is that rather than getting a check in the mail that, as we all know, and we can compare with emails versus snail mails and sending a regular letter through the post office, it takes some time to get to you. So to eliminate all of that and you're able to receive your funds on payment date, we encourage that as shareholders, you provide instructions for us to do a direct deposit. So, we can use this word, the buzzword mandate. All it means is that you provide us with direct deposit instructions for your dividend payments. So there are different types of mandates. The main one, based on what I just explained, is a bank mandate. So you won't be getting a check, the funds will go directly to your bank account. We also have what we call a hold or collection mandate. So if it is a case that you prefer to, on payment day, that we pull that check for you and you come to our office and collect it, then that option is there. If for the third party, if say, for example, you want the dividends to go to somebody else or to an entity, say, for example, you want to provide to some charity or to your church, you can provide a third-party mandate that will instruct us to send the funds to a party that is not on the account. All right, so the know-how. All investors can manage their dividend payments by completing a mandate form, which is usually called, or the name of this form is our Jcsd Investor Instruction Form. So you can visit the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website, and that search tab, you just click on it, type in Investor Instruction Form. You should see that form coming up, and you have that completed. So what you will be doing is providing the required information to have your dividend payment deposited to an institution of your choice. So before I would have said and let's just go back, the bank mandate. So for this one, even though it is termed a bank mandate, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a commercial bank. It can be a credit union, it can be back to your stockbroker, it can be a building society, anything, any of these institutions that you want the funds to go to, then you provide us the instructions on the investor instructions form, and on payment date, we will provide if it is a further credit list to your stockbroker, then we will send the funds to them and provide the further credit instructions for them to credit your account. How do you do this? So in terms of recording these email addresses, you can take note of this. So you can either submit it to our depository services unit and copy in the registrar services unit, and the instructions are also on the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website. When you view the form, you can either deliver the form to our offices at the Jamaica Stock Central Securities Depository, the same location as the Jamaica Stock Exchange, which is 40 Harbor Street, or you can deliver the form or the instructions to your stockbroker for further submission to the JCSD. All right, some questions now. So it is retrospection time, right? So some questions that you will now be required to ask yourself. Why invest and abandon my returns, my dividends? Recently, I had a conversation with a shareholder because, as I said before, we manage companies that are either listed on the stock exchange or it can be private companies. So the investor, and she is also an overseas investor. She's from, her address states that she's from New York. And she called and she was querying her payment. So she said, Tamika, I have been really truly getting these checks in the mail. But when I get them, it's like I either throw them somewhere or, you know, I just don't pay them any mind. But then one day I decided to open one of them. And when I saw the value on the check, I said, no man, let me get all of them together and total the amount and see how much it is. So she said she did that and she calculated the amount and it came up to over 250 Jamaican dollars. And she said, what is ironic about this is I wanted to invest in a company that recently issued shares by an IPO, which is an initial public offering. And she said it is so ironic that this same amount is the amount that I wanted to invest, but I just did not get the time to get to my broker, to send the funds to them, to be able to actually be a part of the IPO. And when I looked at that, if it was a case, let us call this in shareholder Miss Brown for argument's sake. If Miss Brown had provided instructions to us to send her dividend payments to her broker, each of those payments would have gone to her broker and she could have you know, provided the instructions beforehand, because you naturally would have that relationship with your broker to say, okay, these dividends will be coming and what I want you to do is to have them accumulated on this account. And then if it is a case that you want to instruct your broker, then you have that dialogue and have that relationship. So if Miss Brown had done that, and that $250,000 were on her account, then she could easily have sent instructions to her broker to say, use the funds to invest in this IPO that she really wanted to do. So don't be Miss Brown, right? Take the initiative to secure your dividends, right? Because it really makes no sense when you invest your hard-earned money. You know, Mr. Silva's mentioned that money is a buzz topic. You know, it is something that we all want, and we all always looking at, you know, budgeting and that sort of thing and getting more money. So why would you take your hard-earned money, invest in a company, and then you abandon your returns? Right? So look on that, always reflect on that, Miss Brown, and don't be a Miss Brown, right? Ensure that your accounts are up to date. She even said at one point, you know, Tamika, I moved from this address for a while, so, you know, I may have not gotten all the payments because my relatives that were here, you know, they probably threw out some of them. So that is real live money that you would have abandoned, even though if we mail you checks and, you know, after sometimes in the future that you realize that you have not gotten the payments, and you can reach out to us as a registrar for that company. We do a research on your account and you will be able to actually get back those funds. But as we always look at time value of money, the money that you would have earned at X time, and if you had invested that, then getting it back now at another time, you know, you probably would have lost that additional income or additional quote unquote profit that you could have gained from making that step of securing your dividends. The next question is, why do I have mandate instructions on one of my JCSD accounts and not on the others? So some persons maintain one JCSD account while others don't. Some may have one with this broker, one with another broker for whatever particular reason that you decide to do that. But then you are getting some checks in the mail, you're getting some payments going to your bank account. Some of the times, again, with the snail mail and everything, you may not end up getting all your checks on time, or whatever delays with the post office, you know, there are reasons, you know, you may not get it in time, right? So I'm going to implore you that you take some time to record all your JCSD account numbers. Call up your broker if needs be, identify all your accounts, and ensure that you have instructions in place so that we can send the funds to your account, your desired account, and you get your payment on payment date in real time. Another question is, why am I not being proactive by adding mandate instructions prior to a dividend being declared? So you will find that sometimes, you know, a payment is declared and it's long after that, you know, you are contacting your broker or you're contacting the JCSD to say, you know, a payment was declared a year ago and I have not gotten the payment. I don't know where it went. Be proactive and make sure, and even in being this proactive, you can ensure that the mandate is placed on your account at inception, at the point of opening that brokerage account. You ensure that mandate direct deposit instructions are provided as well. The next question is, why have I not told my family and friends to do the same? So you are here, maybe your mom is not here, your sister is not here, your friends are not here. So share the knowledge, right? You are gaining the knowledge. I looked at the count in terms of the persons who have joined, and we saw that it steadily increased as the meeting progressed. So share the knowledge. You know your parents are investing, you know your families are investing. Share it with them and say, hey, I know you're getting checks. Why are you still getting checks? you know, and be an advocate for direct deposit. The next question is, how much more could I have earned if I had secured my dividends? So let's just backtrack to the Miss Brown story, even though we're not going to be a Miss Brown. Let's backtrack a little bit. The IPO that Miss Brown made reference to, at the point of the IPO, the price was $1. And when we looked at the price at the time that Miss Brown contacted the Jcsd, the price had almost tripled, right? So let's just let that soak in for a little bit, right? If we backtrack to the story again, if Miss Brown had allowed her payments to go to her brokerage account, she had the instructions in place, and then the broker was now able to purchase the shares for her, that same 250,000 Jamaican dollars that she had laying around the house, one check there, maybe a check still in transit from the post office, that same money she could have earned almost 3 times from investing in that IPO that she really wanted to. Right? So it's not just about, oh, getting a check and, you know, the check being misplaced and, you know, you call and you replace the check. Let it be a greater level of thought process that you go through in terms of ensuring that you are securing your dividend payments. Okay, so it's now time to act, right? So maybe years have gone by and you really was not paying attention to this, or you really did not know about this information. It's never too late and it is time to act now, right? So what do you do? Okay, I'm to submit mandate, but how do I do that? Contact your stockbroker, and that's for one. So if it is a case that you have multiple Jcsd accounts, contact your stockbroker and identify all your Jcsd accounts, right? So do, you know, a little exercise. This is kind of some little homework. You identify all your Jcsd account numbers, and then you move forward to submitting mandates for all accounts without mandates, because we see the drawbacks in terms of issuing a check, it taking time to get to you, you have to go to the bank, and even for our overseas persons, you know, you get a check that you can only negotiate in Jamaica, you know, and even with Miss Brown had to now collate all those checks and then send back to us, and now learning that, you know, she can send it to her broker, she now has direct deposit instructions in place for her payments to go to her broker. So especially for the persons that I'm sure are on in the diaspora, we implore you to have this done. So act now. Stop receiving checks and receive your disbursements to your bank account on payment date. Be proactive. Be proactive is how I will end this presentation to you, that in terms of investing, ensure that you are able to actually reap the gains and the rewards from investing, and you're able to do so in a smooth manner, getting your payments to your bank account. If it is a case now that you want to use the dividends to pay a bill or to do something else, it's now in your bank account and you're able to move forward with the funds that you have received. I hope that you found my presentation very informative. And in terms of the information, the email addresses that I had on one of the slides, I will post in the chat, and we look forward to hearing from you directly or through your stockbroker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tamika. There are some questions in the chat for you. One is concerning the cost of getting a check versus a direct deposit, but you can answer that offline. The other question is just there, which you just addressed right at the end, was being overseas and receiving a Jamaican dollar dividend check, which shouldn't happen, but apparently it does. The question really is, how do you handle, what is the process to get, when you receive the checks already sent, can you send them back to the company and have them reissued? Just explain very quickly the process of assembling those Jamaican dollar checks that were sent to an overseas resident and the process of getting them back into either in foreign currency or invested in Jamaica.
Okay, all right, so I'll do that very quickly. As I would have indicated in a part of the presentation, if you are overseas or even at the start of the presentation, if there are no mandate instructions on your account, you will naturally get a check, because we don't hold the payments to say, okay, we don't have a mandate instruction from you, we send it via check. So once there is an account without mandate instructions and there's an overseas address, then the check will come to you. So in order to not have that happen and then you're unable to negotiate that check overseas, then as we suggested, provide mandate instructions, provide direct deposit instructions so that the funds can go directly to your bank account of choice rather than going via check and you're unable to negotiate it overseas. You mentioned, Andre, about a draft. Yes, we can do that. But in terms of getting a draft, we would encourage you to reach out to the registrar first. Let us have a look on, you know, the amount that you're getting in dividends, because sometimes there are costs from the banks to do these services. So if it is a case that, you know, you require a draft, then we have to look at it to say, okay, it's feasible to actually deduct these bank charges from the amount, and then you'll still be able to actually get your substantial amount in dividends. And also, as it relates to the last question now, if it is a case that you have a whole heap of checks and you want to send them back to us with instructions to prepare a draft and send to you, yes, that facility is there. You send it to us. We encourage you to contact us first. Let us give you the instructions in terms of the instructions letter that should accompany all these checks, and we will be more than happy to have that done for you.
All right. Thank you very much, Tamika. Please remember to put the email address in the chat. And if you can, just scroll through. There are a couple more questions there. I think that you are the perfect person to answer.
Okay.
So
all right.
Thank you very much, Tamika.
You're welcome.
Good presentation. You're getting a lot of big ups on the presentation in right now. So you can check it out and take all the credit.
And I will reply to the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tamika. All right, we're going back to the United States now. We're going to San Francisco. How do we now, as a small business, how do we finance our business opportunities? We have Managing Director of Investment Banking of Seabird William Shank, none other than David Steinfeld. He's based in San Francisco, where he's the Managing Director of the Investment Banking at Seabird William Shank. He's previously Senior Vice President of Investment Banking. In his current role, he oversees a Clear Vision Impact Fund of a US $150 million, geared towards funding for minority-owned businesses. He's also a former investment banker, JP Morgan, and he's a Harvard guy. So that is a good thing. And he's also a graduate of Howard University as well. So without further ado, we want to find out now, how do we fund our small businesses? I'd welcome David to make his presentation. Good evening, David. David, are you there? All right. I am currently not seeing David online, so I would ask oh, there he is. David, are you there? I see you're muted. If you need to unmute.
Here we are. Sorry
There you
about
go.
that.
All right. Just about to give up on you.
I apologize.
Thank you.
If we were playing I suppose, pandemic, bingo, this pandemic video bingo, I suppose we would have checked one of the boxes right now, which is, can you hear me? Or can you see my presentation? Boxes have been checked. But I do apologize and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Just want to say first, thank you, to the various dignitaries, including, Representative Wallace, Senator Hill, the Consul General Wilson, as well as the various staff members and other speakers, and for the folks that are on the line today. Thank you so much for taking the time and for having my firm, Siebert Williams Shank, present to you all. It's truly an honor. What I will do, if you don't mind, is I'm going to try to share a presentation shortly. And the purpose of the discussion today, as Mr. Gooden mentioned, is to talk about funding opportunities for minority-owned businesses and how a new investment vehicle that my firm created recently can facilitate that. Just hold for 1 second. Trying to see how we can share this. Can you all see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Apologies. Let me try this again.
Yes,
How about
something's
now?
happening. Yes.
Okay, great, awesome. So very briefly before I start, I'll just share a little bit of background about myself. I serve as a managing director with Siebert Williams Shank, which is the parent company of the Clear Vision Impact Fund. The Clear Vision Impact Fund was founded pretty much last year. It was an idea that was generated, sort of germinated out of the prior to George Floyd, excuse me, the sort of issues that started cropping up initially in Missouri, actually, with police sort of excessive force and violence towards Blacks in the States and folks in the diaspora. It was an idea that was generated and discussed with several different companies. And then after the George Floyd protests began, it was accelerated and sort of brought to fruition in its current form. And with that, I'm just going to go through a couple of pages in the book. So there's a disclaimer. I should note that anything that I discussed today is not investment advice. You should also seek any advice from your personal investment advisor or tax counsel before pursuing any of the options that I'm going to discuss with you today. Just as a disclaimer, I have to say that. The fund is owned by, again, the general partner being Siebert Williams Shank, and it's owned by Christopher Williams and Suzanne Shank, who are two dynamic business leaders who own two separate different investment banks that ultimately met each other after 25 years running their own separate investment banks and created a parent company that I'll talk about a little bit further in a couple of successive slides. But the Clear Vision Impact Fund, which is the brainchild of the parent fund, it has currently 145 million of assets under management, and our limited partners included many of sort of Fortune 50 companies. So they include a lot of household names, like Microsoft is one of our first investors, Apple was one of our first investors, PayPal, eBay, Constellation Brands, Northwestern Mutual, and several other firms came together to provide us with our initial 145 million of commitments. And what we're doing with those commitments is specifically lending money in the form of loans or other credit products to minority-owned and Latinx businesses. And those could be domestically in the States or in certain geographically, say in the Western Hemisphere countries as well, including Jamaica, of course. I'll talk a little bit more later on about some of the specific factors that we're looking for in terms of the companies that we're looking to invest in, and some of the parameters that we're using to guide those investment decisions. But again, I want to emphasize at the start that it's a credit fund, so loans only, and there's no equity being provided. The strategy, of course, is to really invest in minority-owned companies, because oftentimes we found that we are the last to be able to obtain financing. And that's both in good economic times and bad economic times. I mean, just a couple of years ago, or last year, when interest rates were at their all-time historical lows, there's a tremendous amount of data out there and evidence to show that business owners that are minority-owned businesses had a significant amount of trouble obtaining low-cost financing, which then creates a sort of multiplier effect on wealth, because if you can't obtain financing, then you can't invest in your community, you can't invest in businesses, you can't grow jobs in your community, you can't refinance for savings. So that sort of gap that we saw, which I'll talk about the data a little bit further later, is what this investment fund seeks to address. And through the parent company's sort of relationship with a lot of our limited partners, again, including many Fortune 50 companies, as well as the parent company's corporate investment banking arm and its municipal investment banking arm, we seek to help the companies that we invest in grow significantly by providing them sort of like with procurement opportunities or connections to our, again, corporate and municipal partners of the parent company. Turn to the next page just to talk a little bit about Siebert Williams Shank, the parent company. Again, I think it's important to emphasize the parent company because that's where a significant amount of the resources to help the companies that we're going to invest in come from. It's founded by Suzanne Shank and Christopher Williams. Suzanne was the founder and CEO of Siebert Cisneros Shank, and Chris Williams was the founder and CEO of Williams Capital. The two firms were two distinct companies, and then they merged in 2019 in a historic merger, which created the largest non-bank financial entity that's owned by either a minority or a woman in the United States. On the corporate side, they've had a tremendous amount of success, and that was traditional legacy Williams Capital, with over 900 corporate debt or equity offerings just alone in the last 5 years. And their clients include, or our clients, I should say, include 65 of the Fortune 100 and most of the Fortune 500, and if not, a significant amount of the Russell 1000. In addition, we're a leading issuer of U.S. commercial denominated commercial paper. So we provide commercial paper, for example, for large companies like Disney, Comcast, so on and so forth. And we're traditionally ranked among the highest co-managers of investment-grade corporate bonds. The traditional muni business, which was a business that Suzanne Shank founded, has been a powerhouse in the municipal finance space, working with sovereigns, states, and local governments to basically raise capital for various sorts of capital projects. And those capital projects run the gamut from infrastructure such as hospitals, affordable housing, to K-12 school districts, community college districts, large endowment universities, Princeton's and Stanford's of the world, and Temple universities, for example, as well as water and sewer concerns, both providing clean, fresh water as well as sanitation and environmentally sound sewer organizations around the country, in addition to all sorts of transportation entities as well. So, we work closely with pretty much probably every major airport that's out there, including SFO, LAX, JFK, LaGuardia, Fort Lauderdale, and many other transportation entities, for example, like ports like Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, as well as Port of LA, so on and so forth. The firm has 19 different offices, which gives it a broad reach, including dual headquarters in both New York City and Oakland, California. But we also have offices internationally and around the domestic states. As you can see on the bottom right of this page, it's primarily minority and women-owned, with Suzanne owning the majority share of the firm, which is I love. I love saying that stat. It's not something that we get to see a lot of, but it's something that we're very, very proud of, and we try to lead with that. And the makeup of our employees reflects the sort of diversity that you see around both the states and globally as well, more so than many of our peers. Turning to the next page, I wanted to quickly highlight some of our rankings, and as you can see on the bottom of this page, across some of the leading categories that investment banks participate in. And as a minority-owned firm, as you can see, we regularly compete with the biggest, financial institutions in the world. Starting on the far left, from a corporate investment grade debt perspective, we're the #1 co-manager, at least last year and the year before that, and pretty much perennially we're in the top 3, which gives us a tremendous amount of access into the procurement and CFO and administrative offices of the largest corporations in the world, which we hope to use those relationships to then bolster the companies that we're investing in and provide them sort of access to the same people that we have access to from a banking and financial perspective with respect to corporations. In the middle of the page, you can see a league table that shows our municipal finance ranking, and this is as co-manager. So as co-manager, we compete with Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, the biggest firms, and we were ranked 4th last year as co-manager, meaning that we're constantly in deals and that many municipalities around the world trust us with their most important capital raising initiatives. And then finally, on the far right of the page, we show our ranking as lead manager for municipal entities. We're ranked 13th, so which means that we've served as the book running senior manager, the firm that leads the transaction or leads the syndicate for multiple large entities around the country. Usually, because we tend to work in environments where the diaspora is or where African Americans are and Latinx people are, we tend to work in the largest markets around the country. New York City's, the Los Angeleses, the Dallases, Houston, VCs, the very large markets. That's where we pretty much compete for business. So oftentimes what happens is, as a result of us working in these large jurisdictions, we oftentimes are a bank that is ranked within the top 5 for average deal size. So we tend to do very large deals as well. But the benefit of all of the work that the parent company does that we've just talked about for our potential small business that we want to invest in is that we hope to use these relationships to large corporations as well as large municipalities to not only source small businesses that might benefit from our investments, but 2, be able to connect our portfolio companies that we invest in to opportunities at the large corporations that we do banking with or the large municipalities that we do banking with. So what is the problem that the Clear Vision Fund was created to solve is sort of the question here, right? And the problem is, and what's the data behind the problem? I think colloquially, we all know that things are just harder for Black people in general. We have to be twice as good. We have to run twice as fast to achieve the same results. There was a study done in 2020 by Guidance Financial, and it shows the ways in which Black proprietors fund their businesses. You can see over 50% of funding comes from either just cash from the proprietor, their own cash, or from family and friends. That's 15%. So meaning that credit is not the leading way in which people develop their businesses if you're Black. Oftentimes because we either 1, don't have access to it, or 2, when we go to try to obtain access or capital, we're denied for a host of various reasons. It could be credit, it could be discrimination, so on and so forth. I think the story that we tend to hear is that it's a credit issue, or another story that we tend to hear is that it's an experience issue, that the proprietor didn't have the requisite experience, so we denied their loan. But as you look to the middle of the page, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition recently did a study where they basically did a match testing of basically almost like if you will, comparing two equivalent companies that have the same metrics, the same business profile, the same risks. The only difference being one is Black owned and one is white owned. They presented them to various banks and found that in 44%, almost half of those tests, Black businesses that had went in for this, for a loan were either denied a loan or discouraged from seeking a loan. So there's some element, whether it be implicit or explicit bias, that is preventing small, minority-owned businesses from obtaining capital. And that's part of the problem that we're trying to solve here. A third item is even when government steps in, and which is well-intentioned, which tries to correct for sort of the private businesses discrimination, or sometimes private businesses propensity to steer away from Black businesses. Even when government steps in, we find that sometimes there are issues as well. As you can see on the bottom of this page, the Paycheck Protection Program, as colloquially we all know as PPP, which was facilitated through the CARES Act, which is a multi-trillion-dollar act to mitigate the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. You can see here that a survey of 500 Black and Latinx small business owners found that only 12% of them that applied, only 12% that applied for the PPP loan were actually given the loan proceeds. That's just a ridiculously poor showing, even when government steps in. That's saying almost 1 in 10 people were able, or businesses were able to obtain the requisite PPP loans. And for those other 9 in 10 companies that were able to obtain them, then where does the money come to from funding, losses in the business? Again, as we go to this graph on this page, that comes from cash and family and friends, further depleting the resources and wealth of those small businesses, and then thereby further reducing their ability to obtain any sort of credit or lending. So this, in a nutshell, is the problem that we're trying to solve for. And our thought was to create a fund that is specifically, this 145 million that capital we have to invest is specifically designated only to help minority-owned businesses obtain funding. And oftentimes, we're talking to companies that, for the reasons displayed on this page, they've been denied before. But when they, our hope is you come to us, we're happy to try to find a creative solution or work with our partners to find a creative solution. Talking a bit about, so how do we then find these businesses that are minority owned? Oftentimes, unfortunately, there's not just like a database that we can open up and everything just pops up. And yes, Jamaica obviously isn't on this map, but that's the point of this map is to show that the public finance arm of the business has a tremendous amount of connections to clients all over, just on this map, the domestic United States. We've done over 1.6 trillion of municipal bond deals. And the reason why I share this is because in markets where people from the diaspora are, which we know they're all over the States, we oftentimes find that the first way that we can find a minority-owned business to invest in is to talk to our municipal clients. And the question you might ask is, well, why would a municipal client know where a small business is? Because oftentimes, if you're a minority-owned business, among your first clients usually is a government. Why? Because usually governments have programs just like this, or they have specific quotas or procurement legal setups, if you will, that were designed to bring minority-owned businesses into a revenue-generating situation with the host government. So we really lean on our collection of bankers around the country to try to help us find minority-owned businesses. But part of this effort also is in what I'm doing today, and I hope that among the people on this call are folks that know of minority-owned businesses that would benefit from relationship with the Clear Vision Impact Fund and will reach out to me, subsequent to this call. After we find these businesses, we work out a sort of a term sheet to provide lending to them over a period of time. The second thing we want to really hope to do is provide an avenue for them to grow. We don't just want to give them capital and just walk away as though we're Bank of America or JP Morgan or something like that, where we just lend to you and then just wait for our interest payments. We actively try to do two things. One is to help you grow, and then two is to help you build scalable change within your community. How do we help you grow? Well, we have long-standing connections to many supplier diversity arms or procurement arms of the Fortune 500 companies that we work with regularly to do corporate investment banking business. And, we've been in business for over 25 years, so we've become very accustomed to navigating the various, which could be very labyrinthian procurement sort of divisions of these companies. So we know who the person is that can get you to a yes. If you're trying to work with a large company, oftentimes we'll have somebody on our banking staff that already knows the CFO, already knows the chief administrative officer or the COO. And rather than starting at the procurement level, you can start at that level with trying to build a growth line of business, or in trying to scale up a line of business, or just trying to, within an existing line of business, expand opportunities for your business to grow. And we proactively seek to make connections between our portfolio companies that we invest in, and again, the large corporations that we've had a number of years of success with doing investment banking with them. We also find that there are corporate risk managers that are asked to sort of allocate capital, and sometimes we're asked to do that as well to help sort of corporations guide capital towards certain objectives that they have. And in the case of the Clear Vision Impact Fund, we obviously would seek to find matches within our portfolio of companies that we invest in or small businesses to say, hey, this company that we're invested in would be a perfect match for a corporate risk manager to consider investing in, and we'll help facilitate that conversation. So again, the punchline here is that we're really hoping to not only invest, but also to act proactively help our portfolio companies grow. And again, we're not taking an equity position here. This is purely lending, but it's not like we get upside per se from helping your company grow, but it's important for us to see these minority-owned businesses and minority-adjacent-owned businesses grow. The second thing that we try to do, besides helping companies grow, is we want to actually make an impact. That's really, really important to us. And the question is, how do you make an impact as a small business? There's a myriad of ways to do that, but we've tried to, and we've discussed with our LPs, what's important to us from a value standpoint and what's important to our LPs from a value standpoint. And the three sort of pillars that we're trying to build and sort of impact are: one, as you can see on this page, diversity, equity, and inclusion; two, training and educational opportunities; and three, which I think I consider to be most important, is local hiring. Starting with the bottom, local hiring is so important, and we encourage our portfolio companies to hire within the community that they operate in, because oftentimes minority-owned businesses and minority-adjacent-owned businesses are already in jurisdictions where a significant amount of people from the diaspora already live and function in. And as we all know, jobs are the economic engine for local economies. Going one step up, training and education opportunities, we actively ask our portfolio companies to increase the amount of training that they provide to staff as well as to local communities. And that could be in the form of paying for community college, or paying for degrees, or bringing in outside training, hopefully from an MBE, to discuss a myriad of different options. Some of them could be regulatory trainings that are required by the industry that they function in. Others could just be training on, for example, the economy or business aspects that will help their staff be able to grow and move beyond just the static job that they have today. And then finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. These are more of our traditional DEI efforts to make sure that each company has representation at the board level, management, and staff for people that look like us and come from our communities. And it's great to have these goals, but without measurement, there can't be much progress. So on a quarterly basis, we actually have transacted with an external consulting firm to reach out to our portfolio companies and collect data that we share with our limited partners on what level of improvement or what level of change we've seen, both positive and negative, we've seen in these three particular items. And we ask them to self-report, and then we report to our LPs. Thus far, we've been able to see 100% of our portfolio companies are minority owned. We still have a significant amount of money to invest. We've only invested 11 million of the 145 thus far. And of that 11 million, all of that has gone to Black-owned companies. And we're looking to, continue that trend. And hopefully within a year's time, if I'm fortunate to come back to this illustrious forum, I hope to come back and be able to report to you all the success that we've had in producing impact with our portfolio companies. And then lastly, I wanted to just quickly touch on the types of investments that we're doing, because I think I talked a lot about strategy, but like, what are the nuts and bolts? What can you actually obtain if you're a proprietor from the Clear Vision Impact Fund? The first is that, again, it's only loans, only credit products. There are no equity here, which actually we believe is a benefit to the minority-owned businesses. We're looking for companies that have below $150 million in net revenues, and that could be as low as less than $1 million. It could be as high as 149 million. So we purposely created a wide berth because we want to be as inclusive as possible within the bounds of the term small business. We're also looking for companies that are profitable. So if you have EBITDA of between 2 to 25 million, but it could be substantially less than that as well. We've certainly lent to companies that had 500,000, for example, of EBITDA. And I would focus, for those on the line today, I would focus more on the revenue number and less on the EBITDA, because we understand that there's multiple reasons why small businesses might manage the business to a minimal profit to avoid tax, so on and so forth. So if you're looking at your company, you're saying, hey, I don't quite fit directly into those two buckets, it's still okay. I would still say, shoot me an email or give me a call, and let's talk through the particulars of your business or your situation to see how we can help you. In terms of the products that we're offering, most of the lending that we're doing is senior secured first lien loans, but we do, and by that I mean probably 80–85% is senior secured, but we do provide some slightly more expensive second lien unitranche or mezzanine debt as well. In limited instances, we'll also potentially attach some warrants, potentially for certain revenue increases or depending on the business type. But I would focus more just on senior secured, plain vanilla first lien loans is what we tend to offer. From an investment focus, we're industry and geographic agnostic. Again, we want to create as wide a net as possible, because we want to be as inclusive as possible with our lending. There are a couple of businesses that we don't lend to, so any real estate concerns we can't lend to. Startups as well, unfortunately, at this time, that's not part of our portfolio. But if you have at least 1 to 2 years of operating history, then we would love to be able to talk to you. In terms of portfolio, we're looking for about 15 to 20 transactions. We've looked at probably over maybe 60, 70 at this point. And we're fortunate to have many partners that helped us sort of find various businesses to invest in. And within those sort of 15 to 20 transactions, we're looking to invest about $2 to $15 million per transaction. We could go higher and we could go lower. We've done so already. So again, don't let those numbers be the hard and fast rule for you, but consider those sort of, bookends, if you will, like somewhat of bookends, if you will, for consideration. But with that, this is the end of the presentation. I feel like I've done a lot of talking. I appreciate the fact that you guys are patient with me putting together getting my tech woes together. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Gooden for Q&A. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David. One question. A business based in America, or in Canada, or in America for that matter, looking to invest outside of the region, in Jamaica, for example, would your organization consider lending to a US-based minority-owned business to invest in business in Jamaica, for example?
That's a great question, Mr. Gooden. I apologize for not touching on that particular topic, but yes, we would absolutely be interested in a business that was domestically based and considering, or Canada based and interested in investing in a Jamaican company. We've in fact looked at several opportunities that are like that, but also opportunities in which a company had substantial operations based in Jamaica as well.
Okay, excellent. That's the opportunity I think we really wanted to hear, because that's where the rubber hits the road. So definitely we're happy to hear that. Thank you very much. Just before we bring Dylan on, I know CG, Madam CG has something to say.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you first to David for the presentation. And David, I'm going to ask you to just drop your email in the chat because there are some people in there who wants to contact you further. So there are opportunities. Thank you very much again. Go ahead, Madam CG.
Before David leave, David, thank you so much. David, you forgot to mention though that Chris Williams, and not the Chris Williams from Proven, but Chris Williams, formerly of Williams Capital, is in fact a Jamaican.
And his wife. Yes.
And his wife, Chris.
And his wife.
And his wife. And
Janice.
you, Mr. David, is from where, sir?
So unfortunately, I am not from the beautiful island of Jamaica. I'm from a slightly different one that sometimes gets kicked around, but we fight mighty. I'm from Haiti.
You're from Haiti. David is from Haiti. We do have the Haitian ambassador on with us. And so it would have been remiss of me not to acknowledge that fact that you're from Haiti. And Chris and his wife, they are both from the beautiful island, my island of Jamaica. David, thank you so much for coming on with us. And of course, we will invite you again next year. But please, before I go, that map, David, please ensure that Jamaica, for the next presentation, is included on that map, sir, please.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We went back and forth on that, but I do apologize. It will definitely be there. And I will share your well wishes as well with both Chris and his wife, Janice, who are very proud Jamaicans. And I'm fortunate they let me speak today because they know how excited I was to do this presentation. But thank you. It's been an honor. And to the extent that, as Mr. Gooden said, if anybody would like to follow up on the Clear Vision Impact Fund, I really encourage you to reach out to me. Don't self-censor yourself. Don't count yourself out. Make the call and let's talk. You'd be surprised at what we can get done together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we hope we'll see you at the next year in Jamaica at the Regional Capital Markets Conference that the Jamaica Stock Exchange hosts every year in January.
Yes, sir.
We will invite you for sure. Madam CG, anything else before we move on?
No. David, there are a few questions for you in the chat, so we're going to invite you to respond to those questions. Some of them, if you can.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam CG. And I also see Ambassador Sharon Saunders was online, and also Christopher Chaplin, my friend. Good to see you. Good to have you online. All right. Our final presenter for this evening. Remember, tomorrow evening, same place, same time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Is that Eastern time, right, Consul General? Yes.
No. It's 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Eastern time.
5 p.m. Eastern time.
Right.
4 p.m. in the Caribbean. We'll be right here again with day 2. Our next presenter, final presenter for today is Dylan Coke, Deputy General Manager, Investment Banking and Sales at JN Fund Managers Limited. He will be speaking on the trends emerging in the region and around the globe as well, because he's qualified to do that. Mr. Coke is an accomplished professional with many years of experience in origination and execution of capital markets transactions in Jamaica. At JN Fund Managers, he leads the investment banking team in the advisory and fundraising transactions for medium and large companies in Jamaica and around the Caribbean. He's an attorney at law and investment banker who received Master of Laws in International Banking and Financial Law from Boston University School of Law, certificate in legal education from the Norman Manley Law School, and a Bachelor of Laws from the University of the West Indies. A member of the Commercial Law Subcommittee of the Jamaican Bar Association, and the list goes on and on. But I know he's anxious to present and we're anxious to hear from him. So without further ado, over to you, Dylan. Good evening.
Good evening, Andre. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me on. And good evening to all your guests. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. Andre gave me a very kind introduction, so I don't think I need to say anything else. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. The idea was that I would respond to questions that Andre would pose. I don't know if Andre has them ready. If he doesn't.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Right.
Anytime you're ready, Andre.
Okay. All right. The first one I have is sort of a little twister, but from the perspective, the local perspective. Let's say we have a Jamaican coming back home with an idea to start a small business, to start a business in Jamaica. Where does a startup go locally for venture capital for private equity / venture capital type of funding? That's the first one I would give to you.
So I would say that the private equity and venture capital ecosystem is still fairly young in Jamaica. It is growing. I don't think it is where we would want it to be yet, but certainly, for example, the Development Bank of Jamaica has put a lot of effort into supporting private equity funds. And there are a number of funds in existence. There are some venture capital networks as well. I can think of First Angels, for example. And if the company wants to go that route, my advice to them would be to first do your research, ensure that you have a detailed and comprehensive business plan. When I say detailed and comprehensive, I mean something that sets out your competitive advantage, something that details projections for the business, something that speaks to the management of the board of directors, how you will ensure good corporate governance and those kinds of things. And then, approach some of the private equity and venture capital providers in the market. And if you speak to Asean fund managers, for example, we have relationships with those persons and we would be very happy to connect you with them. So that's the equity route. If what you're looking for is debt, there are a number of options across the range. There are small business loans from places like JN Small Business, and many of the other financial groups have options for small businesses that are just getting started.
All right, good shot there. And happy to hear that JN Fund has a foothold in that ecosystem as well. But just to start, I mean, we don't have a lot of time, and I thank the members of the audience for still staying with us. We are over a little bit, but I think this is a very important part of bringing the whole seminar together today by speaking more about happening in Jamaica and the region. And I would ask Dylan to give us a little overview of what has been happening in Jamaica in the capital markets. Let's say since the advent of COVID 2020 to today. Where are we now versus where we were? And where do you see the opportunities for investors?
Great, thanks for that, Andre. So the first thing I would probably mention to your guests and invitees is that the Jamaican capital markets are probably still the most active and deepest in certainly the English-speaking Caribbean. In terms of the size and variety of transactions across debt and equity, I think we are definitely the leaders. And certainly up to 2019, we would have been really impressed by the growth of the local capital markets. I've been in this business for about 15 years now, and it's amazing to see how the local markets have grown. Up to 2018, 2019, you would have seen larger and larger debt transactions. You would have seen larger and larger IPOs and APOs and rights issues. You would have seen preference share issues. publicly listed bonds, sale and leaseback. Just a really impressive variety of transactions. Now, obviously, all of that would have been impacted by the pandemic. Deal flow would have slowed down substantially. You would have seen, as you know, you would have seen fewer listings on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. There would also have been fewer private placements of debt, for example, which is, you know, kind of my bread and butter as an investment banker. And, you know, the reasons would have been obvious. Businesses and economies would have slowed down. Issuers of securities would have not been perhaps in the best position to issue debt, for example. And many of them, even if they were still in a very good financial position, were being cautious and taking a wait and see approach. For investors, many of them would also have said, you know what, this is an unusual time. There's no playbook here. Markets would have gone down. I'm gonna sit on the sidelines myself and see how this plays out. Now, interestingly and thankfully, towards the end of 2021 and now into 2022, I've seen a lot more activity in the local markets. So more listings on the main market. Recently, you would have seen Massey cross-listing on the local main market. There would have been 3 junior market listings in rapid succession recently. Trading activity on the junior market additionally has been robust. So I'm very pleased to say that in that space, activity remains strong. In terms of the debt side of the market, there is still substantial activity taking place. There are a number of private placements of debt in the market as we speak, from issuers in a variety of industries, from financial services to energy to real estate, you name it. And my expectation is that there should be additional activity going forward. The concern I would have, though, is how things like the war in Ukraine, which has impacted supply chains, which has caused increases in fuel prices and commodity prices, how that will ultimately impact local markets. So what's been happening with the pandemic and with supply chain difficulties is that inflation has risen dramatically. Point-to-point inflation for February 2022 was at 10.7%. And in response, our local central bank, like other central banks around the world, has raised their policy rates. So interest rates are going up, and we'll have to see how that plays out in the local capital markets. What we're seeing now is that debt offers are being impacted in terms of how they're being structured. So you still have debt offers, but you're seeing offers with shorter tenors. You're seeing them structured with fixed to variable rate pricing. I suspect some of the sizes are lower than what they would have been in ordinary times. So that's playing it out. That's playing out as we speak. And I would tell you, if I sat here and told you, I thought I knew exactly how all of these things were going to play out, you should reach through the screen and just slap me, because to a certain extent, this is uncharted territory.
Yeah. Good one. Well, speaking directly to our audience now, who have been sitting on cash overseas, looking for opportunities in Jamaica, and adopted the wait and see attitude, similar to what has happened here, wait and see, wait and see. 2019 was wait and see, 2020 was wait and see. In 2021, people started to emerge again, realizing that this thing was not going to go anywhere, and we still have to make our investments. Where are we now in that regard? Do you still believe, I mean, where are the opportunities for those investors now who are sitting on cash looking for opportunities. Businesses overseas who are looking to diversify their products and services to this region. That's from one side, and then from the other side, the investors looking for opportunities. Where
Sure.
would you think that those opportunities would emerge now? Because we want to keep it as real as possible, so
Yes.
that our diverse audience here actually comes away with some action points, which is what we're looking for. So,
Sure. And I see my Consul General on my screen, so I want to reassure her that there continue to be many opportunities in Jamaica for investors of various kinds. I think the thing to do is to make sure you're informed, to do your research,
Presentation.
to ensure that you speak with your broker and financial advisor before making a move, and to also take the medium to long-term view of whatever you're doing. Obviously, there are numerous economic and geopolitical forces at play, and it's difficult to say how things will pan out in the short term. But in the long term, as my friend Ferris mentioned earlier, equities, for example, always tend to come out ahead. So one place for investors to look could be the equities market. You would have seen in recent times that a number of companies have had really good results, have posted really good results. And while I don't want to call specific names, I think it is fair to say that there are a number of companies on the main market, for example, that are trading at attractive multiples. So there might be opportunities there. In terms of industries and sectors, I think there are likely to be opportunities in hospitality and entertainment, particularly because the restrictions under the Disaster Risk Management Act have recently been lifted. So we expect that sector to revive itself and move forward very quickly. Additionally, real estate has remained strong right through the pandemic, so there may be opportunities there. And I would expect companies in the manufacturing and distribution space to continue to do well. I would imagine that smaller companies in that space will come under pressure, but there are large players there who I think will do well. So stay informed, do your research, stay close to your advisor. There are definitely opportunities there. I see lots of interesting opportunities come across my desk every day. And final thing I would say, it would be remiss of me, and I would probably lose my job if I didn't plug JN Fund Manager's suite of mutual funds. One way to invest and do so in a convenient way, and do so in a way where you get the benefit of expert investment management, is to invest in a collective scheme like a mutual fund, which is easy to get into, easy to exit, whether wholly or partially, which gives you the benefit of diversification, but also gives you exposure to the asset classes that you want to get exposure to, whether that's debt or equity or a mix thereof. So that's one easy way to get that exposure.
all right. Final question. I will have two more questions. I can probably lump them into one. The Jamaican living overseas who is hearing about and seeing brick and mortar left, right, and center on the North Coast and in the corporate area. What is your, everybody is saying these structures are going up. Is it a good time for them to be looking at purchasing real estate in Jamaica? You did mention real estate as a consideration. So for our people overseas, one, what is your take on the real estate market now as an investment alternative for our diaspora? And the second part now will be more from a small business perspective. What is in the suite of products for JN fund managers now to propel the development of small business?
So starting with the first question, sorry, remind me what the first question was on.
Real estate. Real estate.
Real estate, absolutely. So I think real estate continues to present an opportunity for investors, and anecdotally, I am told that there are a lot of Jamaicans in the diaspora who have invested in local real estate. And my suggestion would be, again, to do your research, know what you're buying and why you're buying it, to ensure that in making that investment, you do not overextend yourself, but you spend what you can afford to spend. And especially for real estate, I would say take a medium to long-term perspective. One of the interesting market dynamics in Jamaica is that the demand for housing far outstrips the supply, and has done so for many, many years now, and I expect that that will continue. So that tends to support real estate prices, I think, in the longer term. Now, whether a specific portion of the real estate market will do better than another, whether high end will do better than middle of the road, I wouldn't want to speculate. I would just say I think there are opportunities, but investors should do the research and take a long-term view.
All right. And the last question, the second part of the question was concerning small business. And I mean, the carrot I was throwing you was really the junior stock exchange, and how we have benefited from assisting small businesses become medium businesses and really to turn the corner. But what in your suite of products and services can we offer to continue to stimulate growth of small and medium businesses?
Sure, and I'll take the carrot you threw me, particularly because I am an investment banker. So listings on the stock exchange are a part of what I do. And I'm proud to say that I actually sat on the subcommittee of the Jamaica Stock Exchange that helped to establish the junior market some years ago. And that, I think, has been a resounding success. Kudos to Mrs. Street Forest and all the team at the Stock Exchange who helped to conceive and create it and help to maintain it. And it continues to be an excellent option for smaller businesses to raise capital. If you have a good business model, if you have credible management, if you have good corporate governance, and good prospects, it's a great way to raise funding. And as I mentioned earlier, there were 3 listings in kind of rapid succession on the junior market recently. The most recent, I think, was Edufocal, which was a fairly small company which was able to raise a significant amount of money. So I don't think people should kind of take the view that, oh, my company is far too small to even consider it. Come and have a conversation with your investment banker, and let's see if there's an opportunity for you there. If not today, we can help you to plan and structure your business towards listing at some later point.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Well done, Dylan. I think you hit all the points. I don't know if there's anything else you'd want that you had listed to mention that you haven't done so. If this is the opportunity, if not, we can tell you thank you very much for the opportunity. I really think that you brought this back home in a very concise way, and I see Madam CG still smiling and nodding. So if you have any parting thoughts, I would give you the opportunity now.
Just to thank you again, Andre and the Stock Exchange for giving me the opportunity to speak to Jamaicans in the diaspora. JN Group, as you know, is a 140-year-old institution that has deep links with Jamaicans across the world. And it's very important to us to maintain those links. So an opportunity like this is something that we would always support and are very pleased to be a part of. And I would just say that, you know, for persons interested in maybe checking out JN Fund Manager's suite of products, you can find us at jnfunds.com, or you can send us an email at info@jnfunds.com to get additional information. And I will put my details in the chat when I'm done, should anyone desire to reach out to me.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Excellent, excellent. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of day one. I would want to thank everybody, all 200 and odd of you are staying online with us for as long as you did. I think this was good, and it's a big, good foundation to continue tomorrow. Thanks to our sponsors, JN Fund Managers, Burrito Investments Limited, Link, Victoria Mutual Wealth Management Limited, the Jamaica Central Securities Depository, and the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange for helping us to put this together. And I would now, before I give my closing comment, I'd give this Consul General her own opportunity to say a word or two before we close for today.
Yes. Oh, of course, you would have to put me on the spot. Listen, I am taking notes. I'm taking notes. Guys, we have heard from our wonderful speakers that have given us, you know, a wealth of information. And so I hope that you have taken notes. I see persons are still asking questions. I implore you to continue ask questions. Don't be shy. I just want to say though, several persons have asked if the presentation will be saved and shared. The presentation, of course, will be uploaded to the JC website. It also will be posted to our Facebook pages. We have 2 pages, and as well as our YouTube page. So not to worry, we will in a few minutes upload the presentation so that you can go back and view the presentation. And you know, if there's any extra additional questions that you might have after viewing the presentation, then by all means, we're going to post our email addresses both for the Consulate and for the JC, and you can forward us your questions. So thank you for staying with us, over 200 persons. And tomorrow, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow with a wonderful list of presenters as well. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much, Madam CG. And we have a short survey which we're going to ask as we continue to improve the offering to you. We ask you to complete the very short survey that will come up shortly, just to give us an opportunity to continue to improve. I'd like to thank Ambassador Brian Wallace for being with us, presenting today. Of course, Madam CG as well for her words all through the evening and her inspiring words. Thank you to Senator Minister Albin Hill, Minister of Industry and Commerce, to Brett Silvers, President CEO of World Business Capital, Ferris Jackson, Senior Portfolio Manager, Global Equities at Burrito Investments, Tamika Ricketts, Assistant Manager, Registrar Services Unit at the Jamaica Central Securities Depository, David Steinfeld from Seabird Williams Shank, of course, Dylan Cook, our last presenter, moderating the session concerning the trends in the capital markets in the region. Thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, where we have another exciting program. I believe the agenda for tomorrow has been placed in the chat, but you don't even have to read it. I can promise you that it's going to be equally as interesting as it was today. Thank you all for joining.